want to talk about ethics in the boardroom. It is a common topic. There's been plenty of news, media articles written about the topic. Everyone thinks they know how to be ethical in a boardroom setting. Everyone's got their viewpoints. The reality is that everything's going to crystallize very quickly for you when you are confronted with a genuinely unethical set of circumstances. And it will often catch even the most experienced individuals off guard because it's really going to bring into the view, how are you going to operate? What are you going to do? Are you going to walk past the behavior? Are you going to call it out? If you call it out, what are the implications? What's going to be the fallout? Because you have to think about the entire ecosystem. It is a high stakes business environment when you're serving on the board of directors. But everyone needs to have a very clear inner compass as to what you're going to do under certain circumstances. And I've had a couple of very, very significant events happen in my own board director career, and I want to share them with you today. Just to give you a perspective of what it's like to be under really significant business pressure. The first circumstance was a situation where I was a chair of a very interesting company. By all means, it all looked very exciting. Jumped on board, probably didn't do enough due diligence, but very quickly worked out that there were a lot of problems under the hood of this business. There were a lot of legal problems. There were some shades of grey business dealings. There was a founder who was very charismatic, but inclined to kind of, shoot the breeze. There were a lot of issues, a lot of cultural issues around this business. And I was relatively young, relatively inexperienced, and I decided that, after taking a little bit of counsel from a couple of colleagues, it was easier to walk away, turn the head left or right, ignore what was kind of going on, get out. Let someone else step into the seat and deal with the challenges ahead. I also had a few personal things going on in my private life. I had a sick parent, and so I just didn't have the bandwidth to really sort of sort the problem out. And it was quite a big set of problems. So I look back on that now, quite a few years later, and I kind of think I wish I'd sorted the problem out because the problems are still there in that enterprise. And it's only a matter of time before eventually a house of cards scenario takes place. Fast forward to, what has been a very turbulent year for me in business. A lot of highs, some incredible, lows though. And it's really sort of made me really rethink corporate behavior, business behavior. And I guess that's why I'm making this video, because it has really hit a nerve about ethics in the boardroom and how you really deal with it. So I have a scenario, and I've got to be a bit careful because there's a few legal matters on foot, but I had a scenario where something very unethical was happening with one of the business partners. They were entering into a contract under false pretenses. They were planning to sort of do the wrong thing by the individual who was entering into the contract. They had some sort of pretty dodgy plans for how they were going to go forward. And I decided, well, I'll call it out. I think that's wrong. I know it's wrong. It's not the way to do business. It's got reputational ramifications. It's going to impact everybody. So I decided to call it out. And I always, when I call things out, I tend to go to the individual and just call it out with the individual. And the reaction I got was very surprising. It was like the mask dropped. And I saw the true nature of this individual, who up until this point I thought was a stellar stand-up individual. And sometimes, when someone, the mask slips and you see the true nature of someone, or you understand a little bit more about how they really tick in business, how they really roll, how they really operate, You got to step back and go, okay, I believe them. When you start to see some of that behavior come through, you believe them. That is how they truly, truly think and operate. So you might have had a little glimpse, a little glimmer into what they're like, but you've got to sort of take that on board. So I then decided to take it a step further and I decided to involve another business partner and bring them into the loop on this behavior, which I thought was pretty average. And, this individual said everything right. Oh, Kylie, oh, I'm so shocked. I never would have thought this would have ever happened. Let me solve this problem. This never happens on my watch. Let me go fix this problem. And so I took, again, this individual at face value and off they went and they pretended to fix this problem. Of course, they weren't fixing the problem. They were just, trying to placate me. They were trying to just say all the right things. Nothing to see here. Go and patch the problem up. But of course, because I've now confronted a few people about this behavior, the relationships now have hairline cracks developing, and of course, things are now starting to go off the rails. So, you've got to think about your chain of events. What happens when you start to call out the behaviors? What do you do when you start to see things are not quite right? And of course, the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. So we've identified a real ethical problem, but of course, there are multiple ethical problems. It's not just one problem, there's multiple things going on now. And so now that we've kind of called the problem out, people are covering their tracks, which they do. And of course, there are other problems now starting to come through. It's whack-a-mole. We've got ethical problems everywhere. So then it starts to turn a bit nasty because suddenly you are the problem. You called out the behaviors. You saw the problems with the individuals. You saw the mask slip. You saw the issues start to develop. And of course, what do people do? They go on the defensive. They don't go on the defensive, they go on the attack. And so that's what happened to me. They came in, they went for the attack. They sent in their lawyers, who, again, another set of ethical problems. The lawyers were people I had referred into the transaction, and the lawyers turned on me. The company turned on me, the individuals turned on me, and the idea was, let's get you out of the room. Now, of course, I've had to trigger a few things to protect myself there, and we'll see how it all plays out. And I've got to sort of talk a bit in code because there are legal matters on foot. But as a board director, I know where my responsibilities lie. As a prominent figure in the governance community, I know what my responsibilities are to the community. And even if it's difficult personally, even if it means I lose out financially, I am always going to be on the right side of history. And so I've leveraged my relationships as I can with all the key regulatory bodies. I'm letting them do the heavy lifting on the unethical behaviour. I'm letting them look at the matters very carefully. And there's a number of investigations going on, and they will be ongoing. And eventually, things typically, with the light of day, things typically tend to flush out. You can only sort of cover things up so much for a period of time before eventually things start to come through. So, what have been my key lessons? Always call the bad behaviour out. It is never going to let you sleep well at night if you don't. I'm still thinking about that business many years ago that I should have maybe taken some proactive steps on. And it's had ramifications for other people in the business community. So everything has a flow on effect. So certainly you've always got to be prepared to call it out. You've got to think through your strategy on how you're going to do it. You can't always second guess how it's going to play, but as soon as you start to confront behavior, if there is a really serious problem, you're going to find that behind the scenes, they're going to try and protect themselves, their reputations. They're going to band together, birds of a feather, flock together. All those sayings come into play here. You have to really have some street smarts about you. You've got to have that gut instinct when you know things are not quite right. And you've got to see through the BS because people will tell you what they think you want to hear. And then when you become a problem, always be prepared for the fact that they may come after you. They may try and attack you. They'll try and sideline you. They'll try and damage your reputation. They'll try and send the lawyers after you. And sometimes you've got to be prepared to fight. And I'm a fighter. So I am always able to deal with these kind of things. And hence, when I take on a matter, I'm prepared to see it through to conclusion. So as you go through life and as you go into the boardroom, and a lot of people aspire to be in boardrooms and they're thinking about it from a rose-colored glasses perspective. They're thinking about the money, the prestige, the career pathway, and that's all well and good. But there are some real challenges in boardrooms. There are ethical issues, there are business issues, there's dirty dealings. People who you think are stand-up citizens, will do, self-interest will overtake. And when money is at stake and when people are under financial pressure, it is a pressure cooker. And these you're seeing all walks of life, and people you wouldn't think would do the wrong thing will do the wrong thing. And often when they're together with a few other people and they're in business partnerships, so you've got to look at the whole group because they often all think the same. So I think it's a big wake up call for everyone. There's been a lot of unethical business dealings this year, a lot of scandals, a lot of things that have, sort of cropped up in the media. But for you personally, as you go forward in your board director career, get really clear on your ethics, get really clear on what you will and won't tolerate, and always, in my opinion, be prepared to call the bad behavior out. There may be consequences. There's always consequences for people who whistle blow. But you personally will keep your own reputation intact if you've done the right thing, and that's always the key. So, just take my advice on board, and always feel free. You can drop into my diary because there's all sorts of different scenarios, and I know it's a difficult issue because you often don't have a lot of people you can talk to about it. And no one really understands what the stress and the pressure is like when you have a major issue on foot and you've got lawyers threatening you and you've got people sort of wanting to sue you and reputations on the line. The stakes are high. And so I always feel you can drop into my diary, have a totally confidential conversation. And, often I do these things on a no fee basis just to give people the right advice or a bit of perspective on what you should do in a difficult set of circumstances. So that's my thoughts for the day. Ethics in the boardroom, interesting topic. A lot of people like to talk about it and pontificate about it, but when the rubber hits the road, it's all game on. Be prepared for a few curveballs in your board director career.